Ambassador Yuna sat alone in her section of the Galactic Council chambers. The massive room stretched out before her like a crystal cathedral, its walls catching starlight from the 3 suns outside. 12 other species had representatives here, and every single one of them sat as far from her as possible. She had been Earth's voice to the galaxy for 5 years. In the beginning, things had been different. The other ambassadors would talk to her in the hallways. Some even seemed friendly. But 3 months ago, everything changed. Now they looked at her with fear in their eyes. Some wouldn't look at her at all. Commander Do-hyun watched the council meeting from his ship, the Indomitable. The massive warship floated at the edge of the neutral zone, waiting. His crew of 40,000 moved quietly through the hall, sensing the tension. They all knew what today's vote was about. They had all heard the whispers spreading across the galaxy. Humans are dangerous. Humans come from a death world. Humans cannot be trusted. Inside the council chambers, the Velrathi High Chancellor stood to speak. He was tall and elegant, with silver skin that shimmered under the lights. His voice carried easily across the room. "We gather today to discuss the human question," he began. "For years we have tried to integrate them into our galactic community. We have shared our technology. We have opened our borders. But we can no longer ignore the truth about what they are." Yuna kept her face calm, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. She knew what was coming. She had known for weeks. The High Chancellor activated a holographic display. Images filled the air above the council floor. Video footage showed human soldiers in combat. They moved through environments that would kill any other species. Toxic atmospheres, extreme gravity, radiation levels that should have been fatal. They call their homeworld Earth, the Chancellor continued. But we have studied it. By every galactic standard, it is a Class 12 death world. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is corrosive. The wildlife is designed to kill. No civilized species should have evolved there, yet humans did. More images appeared. Human colonists living on worlds that had been declared uninhabitable. Human engineers working in the vacuum of space without proper protection, pushing themselves past any reasonable limit. Human doctors staying awake for days to treat patients, never stopping, never resting. A representative from the Quilxian Federation spoke up. His voice trembled slightly. "We have reports of human ships pushing their reactor cores beyond safe limits. They have no regard for standard safety protocols. They take risks that border on insanity." "Because those risks saved lives," Yuna said quietly. But her voice didn't carry like the Chancellor's did. Or maybe no one wanted to hear her. The Thoran delegate stood next. She was small and covered in soft blue fur. Her people were known for their peaceful nature. 3 cycles ago, a human merchant ship docked at our station. The crew? They frightened our children. The way they moved. Their size. Their strength. One of them picked up a cargo container that would require 3 of our workers to lift. He did it with one hand and smiled like it was nothing. "They don't mean harm," Yuna said louder this time. "Humans are strong because Earth made them strong. But that doesn't make them violent." The Chancellor looked at her with something like pity. "Ambassador Yuna, we do not doubt your sincerity. But your species is unpredictable. You survived conditions that should have destroyed you. You thrived in environments that should have ended your evolution before it began. That survival instinct is still in you. All of you. And we cannot risk what that instinct might drive you to do." Do-hyun leaned forward in his command chair, watching the vote count appear on his screen. The council was voting on the quarantine proposal. It would restrict human ships to their own space. It would cut off trade. It would isolate humanity from the rest of the galaxy. His second officer, Captain Jiwon, stood beside him. Her jaw was tight. "They're really going to do it," she said. "Yes," Do-hyun replied. "They are." Only one delegate abstained from the vote. The Nisari representative was a small woman with scales that reflected rainbow colors. Her people had traded with humans before and found them honest, but even she wouldn't vote against the quarantine. The final count was 11 votes in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention. The quarantine was approved. Yuna stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She had prepared a long speech, full of facts and figures and logical arguments. But looking at their faces now, she knew none of it would matter. They had already decided what humans were. Facts wouldn't change their minds. "You say you fear what we might do," she said, her voice carrying clearly now. "But let me remind you of what we have done. 20 years ago, the Kryloth invaded your space. Your shield generators failed. Your ships were dying. Human engineers went into the fire to repair them. 3 of our people died saving your crews. Some of the delegates looked uncomfortable. They remembered. When the Plaxon plague hit the outer rim, your doctor said it was impossible to cure. Human scientists worked without sleep for 6 weeks. We found the cure. We shared it freely. We asked for nothing in return. The Chancellor opened his mouth to speak, but Una wasn't finished. We have never asked for your gratitude. We helped because it was right, because people needed help. But now you repay that with fear and isolation. She gathered her things slowly, maintaining her dignity. You fear what you don't understand. But remember this, when you needed us, we came. We always came. She walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. And if you ever need us again, she said without turning around, we'll come then too, because that's who we are, whether you believe it or not. The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. On the Indomitable, Do-Yun shut off the transmission. His bridge crew sat in heavy silence. Communications Officer Minji wiped her eyes quickly, hoping no one noticed. New orders, sir? Ji-Won asked. Do-Hyun looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were being turned away from stations they had visited for years. Trade deals were being canceled. Friendships were ending. We return to Earth, he said. And we wait. The galaxy has made its choice. Now we'll see if they can live with it. The Indomitable's engines hummed to life. The great ship turned slowly, pointing toward home. Behind it, the council chambers grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared among the stars. None of them knew that in just 6 weeks everything would change. None of them knew that the galaxy's fear of humans would be replaced by something else entirely. None of them knew that somewhere in the dark space beyond the charts, an ancient enemy was waking up, and when it came, the galaxy would remember Yuna's words. When you need us, we'll come because that's who we are. 6 weeks had passed since the quarantine began. The colony world of Turthos 9 orbited a yellow sun at the edge of Velrathi space. 200,000 people lived there. They had built cities with towers that reached toward the clouds. They had farms that stretched across green valleys. They had families and hopes and dreams of a peaceful future. All of that was about to end. Ilara stood on the command deck of the orbital defense station. She was the High Chancellor's daughter, but she had earned her position through years of service. The station hummed around her, its weapons charged and ready. 50 Velrathi warships floated in formation around the planet. Everything was as it should be. Then the sensors started screaming. Contact, her tactical officer shouted. Multiple contacts. Hundreds of them. The view screen filled with ships. But these weren't ships like anything the Velrathi had built. They were organic, alive. Great creatures of flesh and chitin and hate, each one the size of a city block. They poured out of dark space like insects from a disturbed nest. The Ravix, Ilara whispered. The name sent ice through her blood. Everyone knew the stories. The Ravix swarm had terrorized the galaxy centuries ago. They consumed entire worlds. They turned populations into food. Then one day they simply disappeared. Everyone assumed they were extinct. Everyone was wrong. All ships, battle stations. Ilara commanded. Launch all fighters. Get those civilians to the shelters! The Velrathi fleet moved to intercept. Their ships were beautiful, covered in silver armor and powered by quantum cores. Their weapons could punch through solid steel. Their shields could stop missiles and energy blasts. None of it mattered. The Ravix bioships sprayed acid that ate through hulls like paper. Warrior drones the size of men poured from breeder vessels. The Velrathi particle beams hit them and bounced off their armored shells. Within an hour, 20 Velrathi ships were destroyed. Within 2 hours, 30 more were badly damaged. On the planet's surface, Hana ran through the streets of the capital city. She was the civilian coordinator, responsible for getting people to safety. Alarms wailed through the air. Parents carried children. The elderly moved as fast as they could. Above them, the sky burned with falling debris and weapons fire. Move! Keep moving! Hana shouted, directing crowds toward the underground shelters. She had practiced these drills 100 times. They were supposed to have days to evacuate. They had hours at best. A shadow passed overhead. Hana looked up and saw a Ravix fighter diving toward the street. Its bioweapons charged with a sickly green glow. She pushed a family out of the way just as the blast hit. The building behind them exploded into flames. In orbit, Ilara watched her fleet die. Ship after ship went dark. Brave crews fought to the last, but it wasn't enough. Nothing they had was enough. "Send a distress signal," she ordered. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. "All frequencies. Tell them we need immediate assistance." Her communications officer looked up with fear in his eyes. "Ma'am, the nearest Velrothi fleet is 7 days away." "Then send it to everyone," Alara said. "Send it to the Nasari, the Quilxians, the Thorans, anyone who can hear us." The message went out across the stars, a desperate plea for help, a colony dying in real time. The responses came quickly. The Nasari sent their sympathy but said their ships were too far away. The Quilxian Federation said they needed council approval before deploying their military. The Thorans offered prayers. Everyone had a reason why they couldn't help. No one was coming. On the Indomitable, communications officer Minji picked up the signal. She listened to the desperation in Alara's voice. She heard the weapons fire in the background. "She heard people dying, Commander," she said quietly. "We're receiving a distress call from Terthas 9. Doyun had been reviewing supply reports." He looked up immediately. "Terthas 9? That's in the quarantine zone." "Yes, sir. They're under attack." The Ravik swarm. The bridge went silent. Every officer knew that name. The Raviks were nightmare creatures from ancient history. If they were back, nowhere in the galaxy was safe. "How far?" Dohyun asked. Minji checked her console. 3 hours at maximum burn. "But sir, the quarantine—" "I know what the quarantine says." Dohyun stood and walked to the view screen. He could see stars out there, peaceful, calm. Somewhere among them, people were dying. People who had voted to isolate humanity. People who feared what humans might do. Captain Jiwan stepped beside him. She spoke softly so only he could hear. "If we cross that line, the Council will call it an act of war. They could send their entire fleet against us, I know. We could lose everything. Our treaties. Our trade agreements. Our place in the galaxy." "I know," Jiwan waited. She had served with Dohyun for 10 years. She knew what he was going to say. She just needed him to say it. Dohyun turned to face his bridge crew. Young men and women from Earth. People who had joined the defense fleet to protect others. People who understood what it meant to help those who couldn't help themselves. "Spin up the slipspace drive," he ordered. His voice was clear and firm. "Set course for Terthas 9. Send word to the 2nd and 5th fleets. Tell them we're going in and they're invited to join us." "Sir," the helm officer said, "the 2nd fleet is commanded by Admiral Kyung. She'll follow us anywhere." "But this could mean—" "I know what it means," Dohyun interrupted. "I know exactly what we're risking. But I didn't join Earth Defense to watch innocent people die because of politics. I joined to protect life, all life. Even those who fear us." Minji was already sending the messages. Within minutes, responses came back. The 2nd fleet was changing course. The 5th fleet was powering up. But there were other ships responding too. Commercial vessels, cargo haulers, even a civilian cruise ship. Captain Airy commanded a mining ship called Fortune's Favor. She sent a simple message. "We have laser cutters and a crew that's not afraid to use them. We're coming." More and more ships answered the call. Not all of them were military. Most weren't. But they were human, and humans didn't leave people to die. On Terthas 9, Hana got the last group of civilians into the shelter and sealed the door. The walls shook from impacts. Somewhere above, the Raviks were landing. She could hear their chittering through the concrete. In orbit, Alara watched her last ships prepare for a final stand. She had 30 people left on the station. The planet below was being overrun. She had failed her people, failed her father, failed everyone who trusted her. She started recording a final message, an apology, a goodbye. Then space itself tore open. 47 human warships exploded out of slipspace in perfect formation. They were scarred and battered from old battles, but they moved with deadly precision. The Indomitable led them, its weapons already charging. Alara stared at her screen. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Dohyun's voice came across every frequency. Calm, professional, absolutely certain. "This is Commander Dohyun of the Earth Defense Fleet to all Ravik's forces. You are attacking civilians. Stand down immediately or we will respond with overwhelming force." The Raviks didn't respond. They never did. 5,000 bioships turned toward the human fleet. Dohyun smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "All ships," he said. "Engage." The battle for Terthas 9 had begun. The first wave of Ravik's bioships crashed into the human fleet like a living tsunami. Their acid weapons sprayed across the void, hitting the Indomitable's hull. The crew felt the ship shake, but the armor held. It was built thick. Earth's engineers designed it to survive, not to look pretty. Return fire, Tohyun commanded. The Indomitable's railguns roared to life. Solid metal slugs accelerated to impossible speeds. They punched through Ravik's bioships, tearing them apart from the inside. Missile tubes opened and filled space with explosions. The human ship didn't dance or dodge like the Velrathi vessels had. It simply pushed forward, taking hits and giving back worse. On Alara's station, her tactical officer couldn't believe the readings. They're not using shields. They're using raw armor. That acid should be melting through them. It is melting through, Alara said, watching closely. But their hulls are so thick it doesn't matter. By the time the acid burns through the outer layer, the inner compartments are sealed. They designed their ships to be hurt and keep fighting. Fighter pilot Taeyang led his squadron into the swarm. His cockpit was cramped and hot. No fancy gravity compensation. No smooth controls. Just raw thrust and his own reflexes. He dove between Ravik's biofighters, rolling his craft in ways that would make other pilots sick. Blue Squadron on me, he called over the comm. Use the debris field for cover. His fighters weaved through destroyed ships, using the wreckage to break line of sight. When Ravik's fighters followed, they found themselves in kill zones. Human weapons tore them apart. Taeyang's squadron fought like wolves, working together, never stopping, never hesitating. A Ravik's fighter locked onto him, its bioweapon charged. Taeyang killed his engines and let momentum carry him forward while the ship spun backward. The Ravik shot where he should have been. Taeyang fired where the alien actually was. The biofighter exploded. That's 15, he said calmly. Who's keeping score? His wingman laughed over the radio. I'm at 12. Show off. The commercial ships joined the fight. Captain Aries' mining vessel, Fortune's Favor, wasn't built for combat. But mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids worked just fine on Ravik's bioships. She lined up her shots carefully and fired. A bioship split in half, its inside spilling into space. I've been cutting rocks for 20 years, she shouted happily. These bugs are easy. The civilian cruise liner Serenity Dawn had evacuated its passengers back at port. Now it carried makeshift missile launchers welded to its hull. The crew were waiters and housekeepers and entertainers. They fired their weapons with more enthusiasm than skill, but it didn't matter. Every shot hit something in the swarm. On the planet's surface, the Raviks were landing. Hana watched through the shelter's cameras as warrior drones flooded the streets. They were tall and covered in black armor, with blade arms that could cut through steel. They moved fast and killed anything they found. Then the sky lit up with human drop pods. The pods hit the ground like meteorites. Doors blew open and Marines poured out. Lieutenant Sora led her platoon through the streets, her rifle barking. The Ravik's warriors were strong, but humans were stronger. Earth's high gravity made human bones dense and human muscles powerful. A warrior drone that could tear through Velrathi soldiers met Sora's combat knife and found out what a real predator looked like. Suppressing fire, Sora shouted. Her squad moved like a machine. Cover, advance, fire, reload. They had trained in deserts and jungles and frozen tundra. They had trained in conditions that would kill other species. This was just another mission. A warrior drone leaped at her from a rooftop. Sora didn't flinch. She timed her shot perfectly, catching it in mid-air. It crashed at her feet. She stepped over it without slowing down. The Raviks had never fought humans before. They were used to prey that ran or died quickly. These creatures did neither. These creatures fought back with a fury that seemed impossible. These creatures wouldn't stop. Medical officer Hyunwoo set up a field hospital in a damaged building. Velrathi civilians came to him with injuries. He worked quickly, his hands steady. Hours passed. Other species would need rest by now. Hyunwoo kept working. His body had been shaped by Earth's demands. He could go days without sleep if needed. A Velrathi woman brought her injured child to him. The child had been burned by a Ravik's weapon. Hyunwoo treated the wounds carefully, speaking softly to keep the child calm. His training covered diseases and toxins that Earth threw at humans for millions of years. This was serious, but he could handle it. She'll be okay, he told the mother. I promise. In orbit, the battle raged for hours. The Raviks kept coming, but so did the humans. Do-hyun watched his tactical display. 3 human ships were destroyed. 15 more were damaged. But they had destroyed hundreds of Ravik's vessels. The swarm was breaking. A bioship rammed into the destroyer Relentless. The Ravik's boarding drones poured through the breach. They expected to slaughter the crew quickly. Instead, they found human Marines waiting. The fight in the corridors was brutal and short. Marines fought hand-to-hand when their weapons were too dangerous to use near the hull. The Ravix had claws and armor. The humans had training and rage. When the fight ended, the Ravix drones were dead. The Marines sealed the breach and went back to their stations. Captain Jiwan coordinated the fleet's movements from her console. She saw the patterns in the swarm's behavior. They were pulling back, testing different angles. The Ravix were intelligent, but they were used to easy victories. This wasn't easy. "Commander, they're regrouping," she reported. "I think they're preparing to retreat." "Then we push harder," Do-hyun said. "All ships, full advance." "Don't give them time to think." The human fleet surged forward. The Indomitable led the charge, its weapons never stopping. The Ravix swarm wavered, then broke. Bioships began fleeing back toward dark space. The humans pursued them to the system's edge, destroying stragglers. On the surface, the Ravix warriors pulled back to their landing ships. Lieutenant Sora's platoon chased them through the streets. When the last Ravix ship lifted off, her squad cheered. They had won. Alara watched from her damaged station as the Ravix swarm disappeared into the dark. The human fleet hung in space, battered but victorious. She had watched them fight for 6 hours straight. She had seen their ships take damage that should have destroyed them. She had seen their soldiers fight with a determination that seemed inhuman. But they weren't inhuman. They were human. That was the point. Do-hyun ordered his ships to stand down. The battle was over. Tirthas 9 was saved. He looked at his crew. They were tired and hurt, but alive. "Damage report," he said quietly. 3 ships lost, Jiwan reported. 15 heavily damaged. Casualty count is still coming in, but we're looking at around 400 dead. Another 1,000 wounded. Do-hyun closed his eyes briefly. 400 families would get terrible news. 400 people who had answered the call and paid the ultimate price. "Log their names," he said. "Every single one. They saved 200,000 lives today. I want their sacrifice recorded." Minji's console beeped. "Sir, we're getting a transmission from the Velrathi station. Commander Alara wants to speak with you directly." Do-hyun nodded. "Put her through." Alara's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted. Her station was damaged and her uniform was torn, but her eyes were clear. "Commander Do-hyun," she said. Her voice cracked slightly. We didn't expect anyone to come. Certainly not you. After everything the council did. After the quarantine. Why did you come?" Do-hyun thought about his answer. He thought about politics and treaties and all the reasons he shouldn't have crossed that line. Then he thought about what really mattered. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "That's reason enough." Do-hyun stood in the docking bay of Ilara's orbital station. His boots echoed on the metal floor. The station was damaged badly, with exposed wiring and emergency lights casting strange shadows. Bodies of Velrathi crew members lay covered with sheets. They had fought bravely. It just hadn't been enough. Alara met him at the airlock. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her face. She had burns on her arms and a cut above her eye. She had fought alongside her crew when the Ravix boarded the station. She was a commander who led from the front. "Walk with me," she said quietly. They moved through the damaged corridors. Repair crews worked around them, trying to restore basic systems. Alara stopped at a viewport that looked down at the planet. Cities were burning, but they were still there. The people were still alive. "You didn't have to come," Alara said. "The quarantine made it clear. We don't want humans in our space. We fear you. We voted to isolate you." She turned to face him. "So why? Why risk everything to save people who rejected you?" Do-hyun looked at the planet below. He thought about his crew. About the 400 who died. About the choice he made that could start a war. "Because you needed help," he said. "That's all that mattered. But we treated you like monsters. You were afraid. Fear makes people do things they regret." Do-hyun smiled sadly. "Besides, we're used to being feared. Earth taught us that being strong and being kind aren't opposites. They're connected." Alara shook her head slowly. "I watched your ships fight. I saw them take damage that destroyed our best vessels. I saw your soldiers fight warriors that killed our troops easily. Everything we feared about you is true. You are dangerous. You are incredibly dangerous." "Yes," Do-hyun agreed. "We are. But that's not the whole truth, is it?" Alara looked back at the planet. "Your medics are down there right now treating our wounded. Your engineers are repairing our power stations. One of your Marines found a lost child in the ruins and carried her to safety. I saw the video. The Marine was singing to her. Do-hyun thought of Lieutenant Sora. She was tough as steel in combat, but she had a soft heart. Many humans did. On the surface, Hana worked alongside Medical Officer Hyunwoo at the field hospital. She had coordinated evacuations during the attack. Now she helped with the recovery. She watched Hyunwoo work on his 50th patient without stopping. He had been operating for 12 hours straight. "Don't you need rest?" she asked. Hyunwoo smiled tiredly. "I will, eventually, but these people need help now." He finished bandaging a wound and moved to the next patient. A young Velrathi child sat in the corner, alone and scared. She was the one Sora had rescued from the ruins. Her parents were still missing. Sora sat with her now, out of her armor. The tough Marine who had killed dozens of Ravik's warriors was making funny faces to make the child laugh. "You're safe now," Sora said softly. "We'll find your parents." "I promise," the child hugged her. Sora held her gently. This creature from a death world comforting a frightened little girl from a peaceful civilization. Someone recorded it on their communicator. Within hours, the video spread across the galaxy. Millions watched the feared human soldier being gentle with a child. They saw human doctors working themselves to exhaustion. They saw human engineers repairing alien buildings without being asked. The news channels picked it up. Reporters who had called humans dangerous showed the footage and fell silent. The narrative was changing. Fear was being replaced by something else. Questions. Doubt about what they had believed. Ambassador Yuna received an emergency message at Earth's embassy. The Galactic Council wanted to meet immediately. She prepared herself for another fight. Another round of accusations. Instead, she found something she never expected. The council chamber was packed. Not just the ambassadors, but observers from across the galaxy, news crews, military officers, civilians. Everyone wanted to hear what would happen next. The Nisari delegate stood first. The council must address what happened at Terthus 9. Commander Do-hyun violated the quarantine. This is a serious matter. Yuna stood to speak, but the High Chancellor raised his hand. "Please, Ambassador, let us handle this." The Chancellor stepped to the center of the chamber. He looked older than before. The attack on Terthus 9 had nearly killed his daughter. That changed something in him. "Yes, Commander Do-hyun violated the quarantine," the Chancellor said. His voice carried across the silent room. "He brought human ships into our space without permission. Under our law, this could be considered an act of war." He paused. "But let us be honest about what really happened. My daughter sent a distress call to everyone. Do you know how many species answered?" "Silence, 0, the Chancellor continued. The Quilxians needed council approval. The Thorans were too far away. The Nisari couldn't spare ships. Everyone had excellent reasons why they couldn't help. Everyone except the humans. The species we feared, the species we quarantined. They came immediately." He activated a holographic display. It showed the battle. Human ships taking damage, human soldiers fighting and dying, the civilian ships that joined the fight. "This is a mining vessel called Fortune's Favor," the Chancellor said, highlighting one ship. Its crew had no military training. They cut asteroids for a living. But when they heard the distress call, they armed themselves with mining lasers and flew into a war zone. Why? Because people needed help. More images appeared. Human medics treating Velrathi wounded. Human engineers repairing infrastructure. The Marines singing to a frightened child. "We called them Deathworlders as if it were a curse," the Chancellor said. His voice was heavy with emotion. "We saw their strength and feared what they might do with it. We were fools." He looked directly at Yuna. 20 years ago, I was a captain on a destroyer during the Kryloth invasion. My ship was crippled. The shields were failing. My crew of 40 was going to die. Then a human engineering team boarded us. They worked in conditions that should have killed them. Radiation, heat, toxic atmosphere from the damaged life support. 3 of them died saving us. The chamber was completely silent. "I never told anyone this," the Chancellor continued. "I was ashamed. Ashamed that humans saved us. Ashamed that they were braver than us. So I kept quiet when others spoke of quarantine. I let fear guide policy." He looked around at the other delegates. We all did. He turned back to Yuna. "Ambassador, Commander Do-hyun violated our law, but he also saved 200,000 lives. He lost 400 of his own people doing it. People who didn't have to come. People who came anyway because that's what humans do." The Chancellor took a deep breath. I propose we don't just lift the quarantine. I propose we do something better. I propose a formal alliance with humanity, a military partnership. Because if the Ravix are back, we'll need the Deathworlders standing with us. The Quilxian delegate stood. Alliance? After we feared them? After we isolated them? Why would they accept? Yuna smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. Because you need help. And as Commander Dohyun said, that's reason enough. The vote was held. This time it was 12 in favor. 0 against. The galaxy had learned what humanity truly was. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Terthus 9. Admiral Dohyun stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Unity. The name was chosen carefully. It represented what the galaxy had become. Around his ship, the combined fleet conducted training exercises. Human dreadnoughts flew alongside Velrathi cruisers. Nisari frigates practiced formations with human carriers. The Quilxian Defense Force shared tactical data freely. What had been impossible 6 months ago was now normal. Admiral, the Velrathi squadron is requesting permission to try the Stormbreak maneuver, his communications officer reported. Dohyun smiled. Stormbreak was a human tactic, aggressive, dangerous. It involved flying directly through enemy formations while dumping mines. Other species thought it was insane. Now they wanted to learn it. Permission granted. Have Commander Taeyang's fighters escort them. If they get into trouble, pull them out. He watched the exercise on his tactical display. The Velrathi ships moved through the course, not quite as aggressively as humans would, but learning. They were adapting. Everyone was. Captain Jiwon walked up beside him. She had been promoted after Terthus 9. The Joint Council meeting is in 2 hours. You should prepare your report. I know. Dohyun looked out at the fleet. Do you remember when they feared us? When they wouldn't let our ships into their space? I remember, Jiwon said. It feels like a lifetime ago. It was 6 months ago. Like I said, a lifetime. On Earth, the new Interspecies Fleet Academy was nearly complete. The massive station orbited humanity's homeworld, its halls filled with cadets from across the galaxy. Taeyang had been assigned as an instructor. He stood in a simulator room watching young Velrathi pilots practice combat maneuvers. No, he said, stopping the simulation. You're still thinking like prey. When a Ravix fighter locks onto you, don't run. Turn into it. Make it react to you, not the other way around. A young Velrathi cadet looked nervous. But instructor, that's suicide. It's suicide if you do it wrong, Taeyang agreed. But if you do it right, the enemy is dead and you're alive. Let me show you. He reset the simulation and demonstrated. His fighter dove straight at the simulated Ravix, rolled at the last second and fired from point-blank range. The enemy exploded. The cadets watched in awe. Now you try, Taeyang said. And remember, confidence is a weapon. Use it. On Terthus 9, the colony had been rebuilt, but it was different now. Human architecture mixed with Velrathi design. The central plaza had a monument made of both earth granite and Velrathi crystal. Names were carved into it, human and Velrathi, soldiers and civilians, everyone who died in the battle. Governor Hana stood at the monument during the dedication ceremony. The plaza was packed with citizens from both species. Children played together, not seeing differences, just seeing friends. This monument remembers those who gave everything to protect us, Hana said to the crowd, human and Velrathi together. They showed us that our differences don't divide us, they make us stronger. In the crowd, Sora stood in her dress uniform. The young Velrathi girl she had rescued held her hand. They had found the child's parents. But the girl still visited Sora every week. Today, the child had asked Sora to teach her the lullaby she had sung during the battle. Will you sing it again? The child asked. Sora smiled. Later, when we get home. Promise? Promise. At the Galactic Council headquarters, Ambassador Yuna had a new title. She was now Director of Interspecies Relations. Her office coordinated everything from cultural exchanges to scientific cooperation. Young diplomat Seojun was learning from her, handling the daily work while Yuna focused on the bigger picture. Director, we have a request from the Thoran education system, Seojun reported. They want to establish exchange programs with Earth universities. Approve it, Yuna said. The more we learn about each other, the better. There's also a request from the Quilxian military. They want human advisors to help train their Marines. Approve that too. Send Lieutenant Sora if she's available. She's good at teaching. Sojun hesitated. Director, we're getting requests faster than we can process them. Every species wants to work with humans now. It's almost overwhelming. Yuna looked at the young diplomat. She remembered when the Council feared humans, when they voted to isolate Earth. The change had been dramatic. 6 months ago they wouldn't talk to us, she said quietly. Now everyone wants our help. It's strange, isn't it? Very strange, Sojun agreed. Do you think it will last? That depends on us. We need to show them every day that their trust is deserved. We need to be what they need us to be. Protectors, partners, Yuna corrected. We stand together now. Not above them. With them. In deep space, far beyond the charts, a monitoring station picked up strange readings. The crew was mixed now. Humans and Nisari working together. They studied the sensors carefully. There's movement in Sector 19, the Nisari science officer reported. Same energy signatures as the Ravix. The human commander frowned. How many ships? Can't tell yet. But it's more than last time. Much more. The report went up the chain immediately. Within hours, it reached Admiral Dohyun on the Unity. He studied the data with his command staff. Captain G1 pulled up projections. If these readings are accurate, we're looking at a fleet 10 times the size of what hit Terthus 9, she said. The room fell silent. 10 times the size meant tens of thousands of bioships, maybe more. When will they arrive? Dohyun asked. 3 months. Maybe 4. Dohyun looked at the tactical display showing the combined fleet. They had more ships now. Better training. New tactics that combined human aggression with alien precision. But would it be enough? Send word to the Council, he ordered. Full mobilization. Every species contributes what they can. We meet this threat together. He thought about the quarantine, about fear and isolation, about how close the galaxy came to facing the Ravix divided. Sir, G1 said quietly, if we had still been quarantined when this fleet arrives, we're not. Dohyun interrupted. That's what matters. We stand together now. He recorded a message for the fleet, for all the ships, human and alien, that would face the coming storm. 6 months ago, the galaxy feared us. They called us Deathworlders. They said we were dangerous. And they were right. We are dangerous, but not to them. To anyone who threatens innocent lives. To anyone who thinks fear is stronger than unity. To anyone who believes darkness will win. He paused, looking at the camera. The Ravix are coming. Let them come. They'll find a galaxy that doesn't hide in fear anymore. They'll find humans and Velrathi and Nisari and every species standing shoulder to shoulder. They'll find out what happens when Deathworlders make friends. They feared us once. Now they trust us. We won't let them down. The message was sent across the fleet, across the galaxy. On every world, people watched. Humans and aliens, soldiers and civilians, everyone knew what was coming, but they also knew they wouldn't face it alone. In the Monument Plaza on Terthus 9, children played under the names of the fallen. They didn't understand the politics or the history. They just knew that different species could be friends, could protect each other, could build something better together. That was the future worth fighting for. The Ravix would come. The darkness would test them. But the galaxy had learned its lesson. Strength without compassion is empty. Fear without understanding is poison. And sometimes the creatures you fear the most are the ones who will save you. High above Terthus 9, the stars shone bright. Somewhere in that darkness, an ancient enemy prepared for war. But they didn't know what they were facing now. They were facing humanity. And humanity never stood alone anymore. The Deathworlders had made their choice, and the galaxy had chosen to stand with them. Whatever came next, they would face it together.